this is Cindy from Cindy's Library welcoming you back. And today I want to do the For the Classics Booktag, which is, 14 questions about classics that they want me to answer. So we will see how this goes, and if you guys like it, maybe I will do more book tags. We will see. So question number 1, why do you read classics and how often do you read classics? Why do I read classics? I don't know, there's something timeless about a lot of them. I also tend to be a little bit old-fashioned in some of my tastes, and so classics fit that perfectly. How often do I read classics? I seem to be picking up a bit on them now, though I have read a decent amount in my life, although not nearly as much as some. I have great gaps that I need to fill still. Question number 2, what is a period, country, culture that you have not read? There are many parts of Europe and much of the rest of the world that I have not read about, though I may have read a little bit from Japan and China, France and Russia now, lots of Great Britain and America, so there's plenty of areas for me to explore. Which book do you think will be a classic in 100 years' time? Oh, that's easy. I think that The Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien is a classic already, and it hasn't been 100 years yet. Oh, yes, there was fantasy before Tolkien, and I could discuss that. And he certainly had his own influences, but the fact of the matter is that he dominated fantasy until maybe the past decade or two in such a way that it's hard to find things that were not influenced by him in one way or another. What was the last classic that I read and finished? That would be The Professor by Charlotte Bronte. What was the earliest classic that I read? Well, if you do not count fairy tales as classics, I would probably have to say, and if they had to have been at least 100 years old, I did read the Little House books, but beyond that, probably Anne of Green Gables and Little Women. What is your favorite classics edition? I like to get used classics sometimes, and so I'm sometimes more open in that way. But I really do appreciate Penguin classics when I can get them. They're a very nice addition, great introductions, great notes at the end, but they are all at the end so you are not distracted. Barnes & Noble is pretty good too. It's larger and so easy to read. Not quite as many notes, but they still have some and they look pretty nice too. If you're talking hardcover, I really don't collect hardcover classics so much unless a specific edition comes in it. For example, I have 50th anniversary edition of The Hobbit packed away somewhere. And I don't know what that edition was anyway, besides it was hardback and it was the 50th anniversary. Classic authors who you wish wrote more. Well, Jane Austen is a no-brainer. I wish she had written more novels. That would be wonderful. And I'm going to count Tolkien as well. Not that he didn't write enough per se. If you have ever seen the History of Middle-earth series, and you know that he did, but more that he had managed to finish more of what he started. It is truly a tragedy that we do not have a late edition of The Fall of Gondolin that was finished. And it would have been so nice if The Lay of Lathian had been completed as well. And while we're at it, The Fall of Arthur. There's a number of things like that he never finished. Hey, really? Christopher Tolkien did an excellent job gathering all the Silmarillion material and putting it into a more or less cohesive story in the published Silmarillion, but it would have been so amazing if Tolkien himself had been able to actually finish the Silmarillion himself. What could have been? Tolkien needed 2 lifetimes, what can I say? Let's see. 8. Your least favorite classic. Oh, that's easy. The Old Man and the Sea. I am sorry, but I have no sympathy at all for an old man going on the greatest fishing trip of his life that in a way ends tragically. Well, favorite translated classic. Oh, that would be a hard one. I'm living Les Mis by Victor Hugo right now, but I really love The Brothers Karamazov by Fyodor Dostoevsky. So I might have to go with the latter. Favorite modern classic. Tolkien, I think, is already a classic, but some people might consider him a modern classic, and that is fair enough. Classic literary places I want to visit. Oh, let's just say that someday I want to take a couple months touring the British Isles, and I have a list, many of which are literary. All the Jane Austen places, all the Tolkien places, all the C.S. Lewis places. I want to go up to the Lake Country and do some Wordsworth. And of course, once I get up into Scotland, have to do some Sir Walter Scott. And by the time I actually go, I'll probably have more on my list. Oh, and of course, Stratford upon Avon for Shakespeare, of course. Oh, the first classic I would recommend to a child. That is a bit of a hard one. Well, of course, it depends a bit on the child. However, I would be tempted to say Anne of Green Gables by Ella Montgomery. And yes, I count boys as being requested to read that too. It's not overly difficult once you get up to a certain reading level, and Anne is such an amazing, engaging character who also has her flaws and her triumphs. A lot of girls, I think, relate to her, and as for the boys, I think that she would help them understand girls, which would be a good thing. What classic titles would I change, and what would I change that title to? That is a good question. You know, I might want to change the title of The Little Prince. And I say that not because the title isn't good or doesn't fit, but mostly because the title seems to me to it doesn't quite capture the magicalness of that story. So that might be one I want to change. And last question, classics that I would recommend to anyone. That is a very good question. I might have to still stick with Anne of Green Gables. As an older person, perhaps Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. That's because so many women relate to those strong female characters, and as for the guys, it'll be a great way to give them lessons about women and girls. So that might be what I would suggest. So that is the For the Classics book tag. Hope you have found that interesting. If you have classics that you have particularly enjoyed, feel free to let me know about them in the comments. I'd love to hear about it. Thank you for stopping by Cindy's library today. And until next time, I hope we all stay healthy and happy. And as always, happy reading!